This is Defiance Daily, dispatches for the Defiant. We have a special episode tonight. We're doing a live stream. We're waiting, Maritza and I together. Hi, Maritza.
Hi. Wait, what happened to Xander?
He's coming. I think he's coming. You never know. We're waiting for the president to start an address to the nation in the Oval Office. If you've tuned in here just to hear Donald Trump, you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong place, and Kurt Bardella is in the right place. He is here with us. We've got Maritza. We've got Kurt. We're going to be talking tonight about what the president has to say. Now, bear with me, folks. We will need to listen to some of what he has to say in order to shred it to pieces. Oh, my gosh. Waj is here, too.
Waj in the house.
Oh, man. This is going to be something. We felt like it was important to fact check the president. We felt like it was important to tune in. He's promised all week breaking news, breathtaking revelations. Unfortunately for him, I helped stand up Donald Trump's election security architecture. If he wants to thank anyone for protecting the elections during his administration, he can thank folks like me and Christopher Krebs and his FBI director, Christopher Wray, and his director of national intelligence, Dan Coates, and his deputy director of national intelligence, Sue Gordon, who might make an appearance tonight, and a whole host of other folks. And we're not going to let him get away with these lies about the 2020 election, claiming that the 2020 election was stolen. And it sounds like belatedly tonight, folks, he will come in and say that the Chinese came and stole the election. And we're only finding out 6 years later that they stole it from Donald Trump. But I think he's taking the stage now. We're going to listen to a little bit of him, and then we may break away at parts. I think we've got the audio there.
I'm proud to report that our country,
economic and social disaster after the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person.
I think that's already a lie, but anyway.
We had transgender for everybody, men and women's for everybody. Crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore.
They're not laughing at us anymore. Let me just point out, folks, I saw a survey today that China is more popular around the world than the United States.
Anywhere in the world.
Hottest country said.
America is respected like we have never been respected before.
5 major lies already.
More money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country.
Invested into Trump
more Americans are working today than ever before.
7.
This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest
we can put the tally up there,
decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars. The provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For you, the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy, because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down.
I'm going to call bullshit on that one.
70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov. This will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save
I can't
their
believe
future.
We just wish it was named
Billions and
something else.
billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account and they'll get off to a great start in life.
Except for the
So
student
for
debt
that,
they'll
go
be
to trumpaccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is
another.
0. Nobody thought it was possible.
0.
We had the worst
Man, this
border
guy.
in the history of our country, and now we have the best.
Miles, would you like to have me pause at any point in time?
No.
Okay.
No,
all right.
they just do it, baby.
All
Let's
right.
do it. We're doing it live.
Do
it
with
live.
the murder rate at its lowest
Oh,
level
Riley.
since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately,
I'm gonna
we're
buzz
forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is
forced
now
to use it
working
now.
with
Forced
us
to
to
use it.
produce
Yeah.
millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits
Oh,
of that
man.
labor very, very
There's
That
not a
was
soon.
loud
Iran.
enough horn.
America
There's
is
not loud
back
enough horn for
and
that statement.
doing really well, but we still have a
That was
major
worth three.
challenge that must be urgently addressed because no country can be great without fair.
Do we
and
have a
honest
graphic where the
elections.
screen
You
explodes in
have
flames?
to trust your country because
Nice.
if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness.
Pinocchio's
Many
nose
years
is in
I've
Russia.
called for bold,
Yeah.
swift, and
Is that Sun
decisive
Tzu?
action to
No
protect
trust, no
the
greatness?
integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure.
we
One
have
where
for the entirety of
cheating
our
and
nation.
interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible.
Like what we have now.
Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of
Well, here
critical
it comes.
intelligence, revealing shocking
Oh, here we go.
vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just
There you go.
as
China?
Disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you. The
Live.
American people are beautiful,
Administration.
are great American people.
Who was
But
president
that
in
all
2020 again?
changes right now. The documents we will release
Joe Biden.
Was
starting
it
tonight
Hillary
have been
Clinton?
gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go
We're
check
gonna
it
add
out.
cookies and
Our
trackers.
purpose in disclosing
Yeah.
this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very
WhiteHouse.gov
quickly.
has
And that's what
crashed,
we're
for the record.
doing. The document
Wait, is it?
Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
429 whitehouse.gov has crashed. Wait, keep him going. Keep him going.
cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle,
Oh,
the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China has signed a data exploitation unit specifically
Let
to
him
this
keep going.
new project.
Donald Trump concedes
Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work
I knew he was
to
going to say a
actively
drink. Take a
suppress
shot.
and downplay information about the
Mercedes,
extent
can you
of
pause it
China's
for 1
sinister
second?
election meddling.
Gang, who else is in your parlay? How many Trump enemies? So we've got China. The deep state's already in there. Before he wraps this up,
Democrats, Obama, liberal media. I want to put. He already did undocumented immigrants.
Wajahad Ali. Oh wait, that's
He already did transgender. He already did transgender people.
Well,
He got that. He got pretty much all
Let's
mine
keep
so
it
far.
going, Xander. We don't want to fall behind the live. We want-
Before we
okay, all
continue-
right.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, keep
before
it
we
going, guys.
continue, Kurt, I'm trying to adjust your mic volume, but it's not letting me.
Is it too low or too high?
There we go.
There we go. Now you're there.
All right.
Silence me.
Bring it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country. A standard very pat line that was
He is funny
divvied
sometimes.
out to say.
Who was
The cover-up
president in
of this
2016?
Colossal security breach is even more disturbing in
Unintentionally
light
funny.
of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his reelection. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot.
They don't need to. They don't need to do that. We already did that.
We didn't need China for that.
Didn't need their help.
That.
How fast
Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America.
And damn it, that's his
The
job.
Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and
So
paid them
all of
large
them.
sums of money to write more negative articles about him.
There's the media.
Many as they could.
Damn
They
it,
didn't
why?
care what
Been
they
making
said.
bank.
The Chinese government
Man,
wanted
I
never
the
got
president
that. Too much-
to lose the next
I've wasted too
election,
much
and
of
the
my
reason
life
they
watching and
wanted
listening to this man.
me to
I have been
lose
doing
is
this for free. I didn't know there was
they knew I
the opportunity to make money.
wise to them. Charged billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military.
China has the largest navy in the world.
These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020,
Oh, here we go. Antifa.
yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance.
That was
One
the
email
FBI
among
director appointed by
intelligence
Donald
analysts
Trump in
admitted that they had,
2020.
quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold
It was probably
information
'cause he wanted
regarding
all those
Chinese
picture
activities
books.
related to
We
the
talk about it
election.
in the back end. Yes.
Another
You
official
don't put
inside the
raw
FBI
intelligence in the
wrote
PDB.
that she was
You know,
running, quote,
raw
a
intelligence.
shadow
should just be lied.
government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation.
Burn
This is
bags.
A group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama.
Now-
There we go, Obama. I didn't have
Oh.
him.
Burned.
I said Barack
These bags
Hussein. He
were
went all the way in with
Oh.
Hussein.
It went all the way.
I
in.
missed that. I didn't have
Different
Obama on my
level
bingo
by
card.
different
Shit.
people incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that was supposed to burn the bag.
Trying to be one of those
findings are
old-timey
stunning.
detective.
Today, I'm asking the
Connecting the
Office of the
dots.
Director of National Intelligence, the Department of
Very
Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents
I
we
briefed
are
China on
releasing
China's
proves that
meddling.
for
I
many
briefed him on
years,
China's meddling in the
Americans
early
were blatantly
report
lied to
shortly.
about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems.
Elon Musk.
Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North
Oh, there we
Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what
There you go. You was
happened,
going to bring up
conspiring
Venezuela and
to
Maduro.
digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This report
does that have to do with anything?
precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went.
Miles, I'll
This
be back in 10
intelligence
minutes.
underscores
Go and
why
enjoy
we
it.
must
Go
take
for it.
urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised.
We're going to give him a minute or two here to see if we're going to have any
The fourth
announcements.
set of documents reveals that
Out.
even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization.
Well, let's do this,
corrupt
Mercedes. Can you
group
turn him down? I want to run
in
through. I think
Muskegon.
we're through most
And
of
we're
the claims he's going to make. We
concerned
should
by what they found.
we can kill his audio
They
if
couldn't
folks
clear
want to
it,
watch.
actually.
If only
we
we're
can
that
keep it
easy in
lower.
real life.
Yeah, if just in case he's announcing, flag it for us if you see that he's going to be announcing any steps that the administration might be taking in response to all this. But guys, I want to go through the big claims that Donald Trump made here so we can talk about them. Before I do, let me start at the top. This was billed all week as an absolute bombshell press conference that the president was going to use. Sorry that you've got Pinocchio on your face, Maritza.
I know. I'm like, wait, no, I love Disney, but no, not this time.
Sorry.
This was billed as something that was going to be an absolute bombshell of a press conference with revelations about meddling in the 2020 election. Here's what Donald Trump did not do. He provided no proof that there was any meddling with the actual vote in 2020. He didn't provide any proof that the adversary that he says tried to hack our election, China, in 2020, had any impact on that election. He provided no proof that there's been any actual compromise of ballots in this country. Everything you just heard from Donald Trump, take it from me, is information that was basically known to the United States. Already known to the United States. A lot of it that he just said was known publicly. Here's the other kicker. Some of the things you just heard Donald Trump breathlessly report, we had briefed him on. Not in 2020, not in 2019, in 2018. We had briefed the president on a number of the things you just heard him say. We knew that the Chinese were trying to meddle in the election. We said it publicly. The Russians were too, and the Iranians were too. And we took steps to protect that election. And guess what? That's why my colleague Chris Krebs was able to say it was the most secure election. We prevented that meddling. What Donald Trump should have gone out and said, all of these people who help protect our elections from those Chinese plots are patriots. Our patriots in the intelligence community succeeded. Our patriots in the diplomatic community succeeded. Our patriots in Homeland Security in the FBI succeeded. He left out that part. He left out that key part. I want first, Kurt Bardella, I want to get your reaction to all of this so far, and then we can go in, we can break down some of the other claims. But in aggregate, Donald Trump did not do the thing he said he was going to do tonight. There was nothing really new here.
Well, I guess we know why they haven't released the Epstein files. They've been so busy going back, looking at documents that already existed for like the better part of a decade. And the crime here is clear that you morons who prepared a presidential daily briefing didn't put raw classified information in said briefing, which you're not supposed to do, by the way. And you know, this is Scooby-Doo and the mystery van doing their job, showing we are severely compromised, apparently, while Donald Trump was president of the United States, while Christopher Wray was the FBI director who was appointed by who? Donald Trump, and the mysterious deep state kept all of this from everybody. And somehow Republicans managed to win Congress, get the majority in the House and the Senate, win a bunch of governorships, 2/3 of the state legislature, but magically there was some sort of interference.
Well, and I have to say here, that was claim number 8 that he made. Claim number 8 was that there was raw intelligence that stated that Chinese activities included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots, and it was withheld from his PDB. Let me emphasize what Kurt just said. When something is withheld from the president's daily brief, it's usually withheld because there's not corroboration of it. If you wanted to give the president of the United States every scary rumor we heard every day, okay, well, first of all, he doesn't have the attention span, but he doesn't have the time, right? The U.S. government sees 1,000 threats a day to blow up nuclear bombs and conduct terrorist attacks. Most of them are not real. Now, in this case, I don't know if the intelligence community eventually corroborated this information, but here's why I think they didn't. It's because the president said it was raw intelligence. There's something called finished intelligence, which means we've gone, we've assessed it, we think it's real. He didn't say that. He said there was raw intelligence reports about a Chinese plots to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden, and it was kept out of the PDB. It sounds to me like that's exactly the thing you keep out of the PDB until you can say with confidence to the president of the United States, like something along those lines is real. Again, this is what we predicted for tonight, folks. He would make it sound like there were these explosive findings when really they weren't explosive. Perhaps the biggest one, and I will say this, the biggest one that the president seems to have revealed that maybe be newsy here is he said that the PRC, the People's Republic of China, carried out the largest compromise of voter file data. This is just data about who is registered to vote, which again, folks, is not your ballots. This is typically the information that unfortunately, the Chinese government has already been stealing from the United States, including, again, he just admitted this was under his presidency. Donald Trump admitted to one of the biggest hacks. Now, unfortunately, there's actually been bigger hacks than that against the United States by the Chinese Communist Party, namely when they hacked the Office of Presidential Management.
Come on, Mercedes.
That's what happens when you get top of the quadrant.
That's all I can do. I have to put it on screen in order to move it.
Tell me to duck, okay? Or put Xander up there.
Incoming.
Which by the way, if you guys, I don't know if you're still monitoring what he's saying. I want to go back to him in a minute to see if he's announcing any White House.
He's whining about why no one's covering it live.
Oh, it's fantastic. That's fantastic.
That's so funny.
And we've got
so meta.
But look, going back to that point though, biggest thing he might have said tonight is that the Chinese did a major hack of U.S. data,
but didn't actually use it successfully to, like, not one vote was changed, by the way. We have not heard the president say anyone's vote was actually changed, just that there's been effectively there was a data breach, and we know about it. That's my takeaway so far.
You guys are missing the biggest part. He said Nicolas Maduro shifted the votes in Venezuela. I thought that was the big news he dropped. It had nothing to do with America, but for some reason he was talking about
they
that.
took him out, buddy.
Yeah, that's why he took him out. He didn't like that democracy going sideways in Venezuela.
Well, what's also really interesting about all of this is, again, the one of the claims that he made here about this massive Chinese breach. Again, Donald Trump pretended as if this was information he just stumbled upon this past week. I want to remind viewers who probably don't know this, but in 2020, when Donald Trump was president, the U.S. Department of Justice did indict Chinese cyber actors for massive cyber breaches, which I believe, I'm going to have to look at these documents, I believe it was some of the same cyber actors associated with this alleged breach. So again, Trump is trying to make it sound like the intelligence community hid from you and the world the fact that the Chinese have been going after our data, when Trump's own Justice Department that year in 2020 indicted Chinese cyber threat actors for this type of activity. So that number is a shocking number, 220 million, Americans whose data has been stolen. But we also all already know that this is the case. And again, back to Kurt's point, that doesn't mean a single vote was changed in 2020. Nothing about the 2020 election has been called into doubt by Donald Trump's comments. Maurice, I want to get your reaction overall to whether Donald Trump met expectations he set tonight. And I say that because earlier in the evening on our podcast, we were talking about how even the pro-Trump MAGA activists who were briefed on this at the White House left disappointed.
Yeah, well, I think that, I have a lot of notes here, Miles, but I think, there's no real new information here, right? If he wants to talk about our data, why doesn't he talk about Doge and the bro who took our data on a gig stick to his new job at a private company, or his own Justice Department right now demanding states turn over their voter rolls? That's happening today. That's happening right now. I thought the part about him saying he was never briefed on it was just unbelievable. He's going back in time again, like we said earlier. Like, I don't know about you all. I have a few very embarrassing moments of my life. I don't like to bring them up every time I get a microphone in front of my face, and I don't know what we're doing here. The other other thing is, it really stood out to me, bringing up these voter tabulation machines. Like, I bet Dominion Voting Systems would like a word, Mr. President, because they won $787 million from Fox News when they continuously repeated these claims. I pulled up all these.
Really,
I hear him again. I hear him again.
No, he's creeping back in the room. Poke him with a stick.
Who let him back in?
Poke him with a stick.
Are not connected to the internet. These machines are not connected to the internet. So those are kind of my initial takeaways.
So
but yeah,
I'm
no
into
real
the documents right now, and one of the documents I will point out, and I notice that Sam Stein also has pointed this out on Twitter. One of the documents that Trump has disclosed tonight, Sam writes, has a section noting that China targeted the Biden campaign as well.
Oh, my God.
Does not, quote, currently intend to covertly interfere to try to sway the outcome of the election. This appears to be quite the self-own, is Donald Trump has taken to the airwaves to claim that the Chinese meddled in the 2020 election. And did anyone actually review the documents that he dropped? Because one of those documents, it has some text blacked out, presumably to protect sources and methods. That was one of the worries we had going in here, is Donald Trump would dump all of this data that would expose the way we know what foreign bad guys are doing. And one of those documents says that the Chinese also hacked Biden and or targeted the Biden campaign, in addition to targeting Donald Trump, and decided not to try to sway the outcome of the election. A remarkable self-own here. A couple other things for folks who are just joining us. I just want to go through. Look, the top line is Donald Trump set the expectation, his White House set the expectation that they were going to prove tonight, or at least they were going to name the culprit behind the theft of the 2020 election. We heard folks on C-SPAN just before this started, Trump supporters saying the Kraken would be unleashed tonight, right? That Donald Trump would complete these efforts to describe who had stolen the 2020 election from him. He didn't present anything that indicated in any way that the 2020 election had been affected by a foreign power, that any votes were changed. He revealed that the Chinese government has stolen a lot of American data, which we knew. He alleged that the deep state hid all of this from him, but then the things that he spelled out in his presentation just now, things about raw intelligence information, are the types of things that typically don't end up in the president's daily brief. Another thing that I have to note, the next biggest thing that Donald Trump claimed here is item number 6 that I have, is he said CIA reporting. And he said this breathlessly to everyone watching. CIA reporting said, quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements to oppose Donald Trump. And he went on to say that the CIA also reported Chinese plans to interfere in the elections. He said this right after. He said this right before accusing the deep state of having hid this information from him. Unfortunately for the president, and I'll say this for folks who weren't on earlier, I was part of briefings to the president in 2018 that made him aware of that information you just heard. Donald Trump lied nakedly to the American people tonight in implying that he was not briefed on that information, that he did not know. In fact, I'm going to give you a public source for you to go look up so you can know with certainty that Donald Trump knew that the Chinese were trying to meddle in our elections. Because in 2018, September of 2018, he went to New York City and he made a speech to the UN General Assembly in which he mentioned Chinese meddling in American elections based off of those briefings that he had received. This, I'm not going to shut up about this. I'm going to be talking about this piece for days because he either has a major amnesia issue or he's hoping that folks like me won't come out here and remind him that he had been briefed on Chinese interference. Doesn't mean the Chinese changed the election. I see that we have now on the screen our friend and former Trump White House lawyer, Ty Cobb, with us. Ty, it's great to have you here, my friend. I want to get your reaction to the president's remarks tonight. You and I have both been involved in policy deliberations on this front, election protection work inside the first Trump administration. Did the president meet the mark? Did he unleash the Kraken, as his supporters on CNN said he would?
Perhaps so, but I think the Kraken he unleashed is likely to circle around and bite him in the ass.
I hate those types of Krakens. Those are rough.
So let's look at it at 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
Was he persuasive on any point at all? No. I mean, I know I'm sure, Miles, one of your reactions was like mine, which is, some of the intelligence that he referred to is so debatable. I've been telling people all day today in response to questions about what was likely to happen tonight that we need to remember that a lot of intelligence comes across the desks at the CIA and the FBI and elsewhere within the government. There's probably not a day that doesn't go by without an Elvis sighting. And the reality is these things get weighed and evaluated and graded. Are they credible? Who's the source? What's the level of confirmation? What's the level of confidence? I don't think anything of consequence tonight, meets any standard that, a government would typically make a policy decision on. And I think, the point you made, he's talking about the Chinese and the fact that, they were opposed to Trump. Yeah, that's true. Equally true is the fact that at the same time, as was public then, and there are public sources. There's a lot more, classified information, I'm sure, but the reality is there are public sources that show that Russia, felt just the opposite, which of course is no secret. I mean, Russia's never had a better friend than President Trump, and they didn't want Biden to win the election. They definitely were in for as much of Trump as they could get, and they got him back in 2024. So, but the fact that people are out there, hoping that somebody wins or trying to influence it, in whatever modest way they can, that's par for the course. We do that too, as you know. Around the world, and it's not consequential. The stuff that I've paid most attention to, of course, tonight was his comments about the voting machines, and I would say that there we were sort of in spin cycle the whole time because the actual facts of consequence that might make that a significant story just aren't there. They cannot show. I think the one concrete fact he said about voting machines that may be true is that Venezuela may have rigged their own election. But
it was a weird revelation to make. I don't know, Ty, is that a prelude to him wanting to, try to get Nicolas Maduro to flip in prison and say that he hacked the 2020 election? Is a weird reach.
Sure, I think we're going to see a very contrived statement of facts come out in a guilty plea for Maduro, for which he will, receive some benefits, either where he spends his prison time or his incarceration on a going
Epstein Island,
or Epstein Island, or perhaps even a pardon down the road. But yes, no, I would suspect that his utility as a pawn for Trump. Going forward, and building on the predicate that Trump tried to set tonight for emergency action. I think that it's also important to think, Trump emphasized routinely tonight the extent to which they were going to cooperate and assist states, but he just gutted the one agency in the United States election infrastructure that actually does help states, the Election Assistance Commission. So there's nobody there now to do what he promised would be done.
That's a great point, Ty. Good to see you, by the way. I was just having coffee with a friend who is an election integrity expert, and he was saying that commission, that while they don't have a lot of control over our local elections, they do provide grants and resources for programs that combat things like, foreign interference or influence. And I think the other thing that we're not talking about, and this is from me, the broadcast journalist, he used a primetime address for this. And this isn't like crazy Uncle Don at his rally. This is the president of the United States asking networks to break into primetime, which is usually reserved for very serious announcements or declarations, to repeat the same old garbage we have heard time and time again. I mean, this is insane.
And on the broadcasting point, that he turned it into a grievance session, against the
NBC and ABC, particularly
NBC
for not broadcasting
ABC,
it.
Who made the editorial and economic decision that nobody was going to watch this,
Right.
and that it wasn't worth covering, that it could be covered by their news people after the fact. A reasonable decision, particularly given what I think everybody knew was coming, which was lie after lie after lie. And I think the fact that he turned it into a grievance session again sort of underscores how pointless the information he shared was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this
and I
was
also
something-
wonder.
Sorry, Kurt,
I'm sorry. And I also wonder, watching this again, if this is more about the upcoming election than the 2020 election. If this is all just establishing a narrative to justify the effort by the Trump administration to continue to seize control away from states who administer elections in this country, to create a predicate, a rationale to deploy an election integrity unit, aka ICE, to intimidate voters at the polls, to already sow seeds of doubt about the outcome of the midterm elections. Everything that I'm seeing right now, coupled with the decisions we've seen in recent weeks from the Postmaster General threatening states that if you don't give me your voter rolls, I'm not delivering your mail-in ballots, to the closing and firing of the remaining commissioners on a board task force that's sole job is to work with states to help ensure we have accurate and fair and streamlined processes in our elections. This to me seems like just a rationale to use outdated, bogus, not validated information from past elections to try to control the 2026 midterm election.
Well, and I think we all found out the reason for the timing on this, which is, Trump has this vanity project, the so-called Save America Act, which is really the Give Me America Act, in Trump's world, and it makes sense that he would come out and make a last-ditch effort because it's not popular on the Hill. People recognize that, among other things, it disenfranchises a substantial percentage of female voters. Requiring married women whose name was changed to go get a new birth certificate or a new form of identification that satisfies the conditions for them to vote. And of course, it's intended, as voter intimidation and to disenfranchise people. So I think it's not popular on the Hill. Ideally, the Senate will hold their ground, even though Mikey Johnson will probably squeak it through the, cowardice filled House. But I think the other thing about it is that in going about it so ham-handedly, I think he may have shot him. This is why I was just thinking about the Kraken coming back and biting him. I think he did more harm to his effort in the Senate, to attract a voter tonight than he otherwise could have, because, or in terms of helping himself, because it was so ineffective.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm seeing right now. I mean, there's reporting about Republicans on Capitol Hill feeling embarrassed about this, having to go out and defend things that are easily debunkable. And Donald Trump has, honestly, he's done himself no favors tonight. I think you're right, Ty, that he has shot himself in the foot. He ends these remarks looking once again like a sore loser, desperate to try to characterize some sort of thief of the 2020 election. He has the bully pulpit. He has the stage. He has the microphone. And he could not even make a compelling case that China stole the election, that a single vote, you didn't hear the president say a single vote was changed in 2020. And so now he's expecting Republicans to go out there with this threadbare information and argue about an election that Donald Trump lost. They don't want to be talking about this. And again, I'm seeing that Republicans on Capitol Hill are telling reporters this is not helpful at the moment.
I mean, at a time where we're right now at war with Iran, again, the on-again, off-again war that changes every other day, at a time where the cost of living is up, where the cost of housing is going up, where wages are stagnant and economic opportunity is flatlined, rather than talk about the things. And again, we heard this narrative from Republicans, rightly so, in 2024. Bidenomics failed. Democrats did not have a good economic messaging plan at all. They got waxed in the election because of it. And here we are in 2026 with Republicans now, their majority in peril, facing the same economic challenges that Democrats face in 24, the Senate very much in play, candidates like James Tallarico gaining significant headway here in where I am right now in Texas, and instead of addressing any of those things and having a plan and a massive potential audience with the American people, he goes and talks about the 2020 election. This from the same party that anytime any of us have talked about January 6th, they've said, oh,
Right.
we need to move on from that. People don't
Right.
care about that. That's so 5-6 years ago. Who cares? That's the message of the day from Donald Trump is the 2020 election.
But so Kurt, I've got to take that, and I want to go back to something Ty was saying about national emergencies, because I think it's evident to every rational person watching, Democrat, Republican, or independent, Donald Trump didn't do what he said he was going to do tonight. He resuscitated old debunked conspiracies.
No smoking gun.
No smoking gun. There's nothing going on here. However, in his own mind, he's painting this picture of a nefarious plot, and he is inclined to invoke. He's already invoked some emergency powers on the election. Today, we saw the White House social media accounts post a picture of Trump getting off of Marine One with the caption, "He is him." This was a suggestion that Donald Trump is the second coming of Christ. These are the official social media accounts of the United States. I mean, Ty, you genuinely have to worry about the president's mental instability. You have to assume that he's going to pull things off the shelf, like I've been warning about, the Doomsday Book, the Presidential Emergency Action Documents, and try to invoke very extraordinary, very serious presidential powers unconstitutionally when it comes to these elections. What are you most concerned about? And also, as a lawyer who has served in his White House, what are going to be the ways to protect our democracy against the president going completely off the rails and pressing those break glass in case of emergency red buttons?
Well, I think the tools that are available to manage an evil president under our laws are the 25th Amendment, which is not going to be invoked by Vance or supported by Congress or the cabinet, and impeachment, which is what the founders had hoped would be a bar to an evil president should the country ever sadly elect one. I think we've seen the Constitution, was just not written for a president as evil as this president.
And the Republican Party as spineless as this current iteration of the Republican Party.
Or either party. Any party that supports the president in an effectless way, whether it would be a Democratic president or a Republican president. It's just that's not what they expected would happen. They thought people would stand up, honor their oaths to the Constitution, as opposed to the fealty that they've given a president. I have been saying since February of 2021 that I fully expected that there would be troops in the street, ICE in the street at polling places in this November, if not sooner, and that I suspect that there will be seized election machines, counting machines, and seized ballots following the election, as Trump tries everything he can to prevent again the peaceful transfer of power. Should the Democrats appear to be on their way to securing the House and perhaps the Senate. I think it's just naive to believe that Steve Bannon and Todd Blanche, both of whom have said, Bannon has promised that there would be ICE at the polls. And Blanche has said, why wouldn't people want ICE at the polls? I think it's just naive to assume that we're not being conditioned for the possibility that they would be there, even though, as we know, it's against the law.
It sure seems like a
federal
precursor.
Yeah.
It sure seems like a precursor to all of that. And one thing I wanted to bring up, you remember earlier we were talking about Carolyn Levitt's comments. What did she say? That we would be shocked and relieved by what the president had to say tonight? What were we shocked or relieved by, folks? Anyone?
Well,
Anyone?
let me go back to, in fairness to the White House, what was meant to be the biggest claim tonight. The biggest claim you heard tonight from the President of the United States was that the People's Republic of China allegedly carried out the largest compromise of election data in history. This is what he said, that they stole the election information of Americans, basically your name and your address. I want to point out something very important here that my friend Stephen Ricker points out, who's a former Arizona election official. The voter rolls, when you register to vote, that's public information, right? Your data, when you go to the DMV and you get your driver's license, you say, I want to vote. You actually have to check a box in most states if you want it withheld, and you have to show reasons to have it withheld from the public record, like you have restraining orders against stalkers. I know this. We've had to deal with this in my family. But by and large, I'm going to assume it's 99% of Americans. The voter rolls are public. Their data is public. And so while it sounds shocking to say that the Chinese Communist Party got the data of 220 million Americans, this has nothing to do with your ballot. This is information that's already on the public record. If someone was to unlawfully seize this material, as Stephen notes, that would be criminal and you could look into it, but you could lawfully get most of this information. If Ty and I wanted to pool our meager savings accounts and go to a bunch of data brokers and buy that data, we probably could cobble together at least tens of millions, probably 100 million plus records, because that's the information that often feeds the data brokers. If you ever looked up a PeopleSearch website or the white pages. So the biggest claim made by the president tonight is the type of thing that like thousands of data brokers across the country are saying, well, yeah.
And Miles, on that point, I think it's really important to look at the hypocrisy on the Chinese thing. First of all, the data breach was long ago. It has been, well known within intelligence circles. It's not something that Trump found out about yesterday. And notwithstanding that knowledge, and notwithstanding substantial other knowledge about, China's eavesdropping and spying activities, Trump is the man who prevented the TikTok legislation from going into force and effect. He's he held up the law that prohibited TikTok from operating in the United States until he could offload it to one of his friends. So it's really rich for Trump to talk about Chinese spying as though he's shocked that it's going on. When it's been well known, well understood, and he himself didn't even care enough about it, to stop the TikTok spying.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, and for folks who are joining us, and have joined us in the past few minutes, I want to point out, I think one of the things that will be among the bigger takeaways from this address tonight is that Donald Trump implied that the U.S. intelligence community, the patriots who've decided to go serve you in covert positions where they don't get credit, where they work for shitty government salaries, where they put their lives on the line, where they ask people to spy for the United States and put their lives on the line, that they allegedly hid from him a Chinese plot to meddle in our elections. I can say unequivocally, firsthand, this was a complete lie. Because, and I'm just one data point, I have firsthand evidence from having briefed Donald Trump in 2018 on those plots. He lied. We briefed him on them. The president was aware. He was aware that the Chinese wanted to meddle in our elections and didn't support him. He was aware that the Russians wanted to meddle in our elections, probably against him, and that the Iranians wanted to meddle, probably against him. What is very telling is what Ty just said, is the president doesn't believe in election security. He said this was an address about election security tonight. The president believes in selective election security. He doesn't like it that one country meddled on his behalf, but he in fact encouraged one of those other countries, Russia, to meddle in our elections in 2016 and then lied about it tonight to the American people. I think, and I'm in conversation with some of them, I think you're going to hear from more people who briefed Donald Trump in 2018 on the threat from China, that he just lied tonight and suggesting that the deep state hid this from him. Now, his evidence that the deep state hid this from him is that he said they found raw intelligence reports about Chinese plots, more details on Chinese plots than he said he received. Well, as Ty noted earlier, presidents, there are thousands, millions of pieces of data coming into the U.S. government. A raw intelligence report just means something that's picked up. Maybe it's a phone call you monitored. Maybe it's an email. You don't send all of that to the president. You use those pieces, you corroborate them, and you provide the corroborated information to the president. He didn't prove anything tonight. All he did was muck up the waters and put intelligence sources and methods, according to reporting, at risk. The CIA director himself, John Ratcliffe, did not want a lot of the information that the administration planned to release to be released. And I've got to imagine it's because he wanted to protect intelligence tradecraft.
Yeah.
So
Well,
he
and,
could've
yeah,
had
and,
and-
let me just
and-
say real quick,
and
because I'm
and
about to
means
hop
and-
off
means
here.
and methods. Means and methods.
Yeah,
That's right.
Like my three takeaways before I hop off here, Miles.
Yeah.
One, not one shred of evidence that a single vote anywhere in America was altered, changed, hacked at all. Not one example. Number two, not one person who is being charged with the crime, being arrested, being called to resign, zero accountability for this so-called deep state cover-up. Number three, not one consequence to China. The so-called bad guys here, right? The big announcement, it's China. Not one act of consequence announced to hold them accountable either. Just a giant nothing burger. And everyone in the Republican Party and in the media who cut away and covered this are scratching their heads going, what the fuck did we just watch?
Well, and that's an excellent point, because I mean, is he calling out Gina Haspel? You know, his CIA head, you know, from hiding this for him. She's not going to support that. You know, and the people at the CIA are not going to support that.
Yeah. So,
Well,
anyways, thanks for
and,
having me, Miles.
Thanks, Kurt. Great to have you.
Kurt, good seeing you, buddy.
Hey, my brother.
Hi, Kurt.
One of the things I'll add
So
to
Miles,
that,
if I
Ty,
can make one other point, which is, you know, he was
Yeah.
talking about the hacked election machines and the potential for falsified tabulations. Let's keep in mind that he made a lot of these claims, you know, in 2020. He went 0 for 63 in court cases where judge after judge, including Trump appointed judges, said there's no evidence. There is no there. And one of the reasons that was easy for them to arrive at as a conclusion is the fact that 98% of our presidential ballots are paper ballots. They're easily recounted. In 2028, it'll be 100% because Louisiana is the only holdout state, and they're moving to that process. So when he talks about, you know, these fabricated totals, you know, it's impossible to do it because there are backup paper ballots for every vote that is cast. It's not electronic, you know, gizmos. It's not out there in the internet ether. You know, there are, you know, ballots that people can put their hands on and say, you know, who did this person vote for? And the answer is right there on the ballot. So I think that the point that, you know, he's trying to sow disaffection, trying to sow distrust in our elections so that it'll make it more likely that, you know, his lies will be effective next November when he loses. I think that we have to keep in mind that they are lies and they can be easily disproven, as they were in 2020. You know, when he had 63 court cases and lost every one of them, in large part because, as his attorney general, his loyal attorney general, told him at the time, there is no evidence. And as the 2021 national intelligence report made plain there is no evidence that a foreign actor, caused the slightest, hiccup in any of these elections affecting even a single vote. So
Hey, Miles.
I think we've got to keep those two things, in our back pocket when we're evaluating these things.
Yeah, they're great points, Ty. My mom's in the chat wondering about the burn bag segment. That was weird too. Yeah, Mom, that was weird. But also, Mercedes has something to say, and she needs to talk.
Hey guys, sorry. I just wanted to bring up a couple things, which was the fact that it's not easily this whole whatever evidence is not easily accessible on the White House website. Can you hear me?
We can.
We can. Ty can't, unfortunately.
Oh, I think. Okay.
Yeah. I'll fill him in. I've found some of it, Sadie's. I can share with you.
So I was able to. I just want to bring up though that you go to the page, you can't find it, right?
It's not at the top.
Then you go to the news. Yeah. It's not there. Then you have to go to search bar. It's not there. Election integrity. I had to go through the Washington Post and get routed to it.
Yeah. Yeah. They've made it really hard to find. Well, I'll tell you why. I'm going through some of the pieces right here. I have a number of the documents up. I've seen some of these documents before when they were classified. I remember some of these documents. These documents hardly buttress any of the president's points. So keep in mind, the president was already making threadbare conclusions. Whoever wrote this speech is the person that should be investigated by the United States Department of Justice, because they perpetuated the fraud on the public just now, because a lot of this data does not back up what the president said. For instance, the president talks about a sweeping Chinese plot. One of the documents in there talks about how the Chinese are going to undertake public opinion analysis. Of course, this is what our foreign adversaries do. They want to know what the public thinks, who's going to win the election, if the people support Donald Trump or not. But here's the really damning piece. In a number of the documents they posted, the redactions, in between the redactions, you can see that, yes, the documents talk about how we knew at the time, which we did and made public, that the Chinese wanted to interfere in our elections, that they were considering interfering. But the same documents they've just released tonight show that the biggest threat actor in the 2020 election was Russia, and that they were meddling likely to the benefit of Donald Trump. We heard nothing about that tonight. We heard about the Chinese, who did public opinion analysis and took public data, but he said nothing about Russia, which appears to have interfered to a greater extent in the 2020 election. Now, again, we don't think the Russians flipped any votes. We don't think they swayed that election, but you heard nothing about that. A final point to make from my end, and I'll throw it back to you guys, would just be that if you had any doubt about the reasons Donald Trump was making these remarks tonight, you shouldn't. You should listen to what Ty said earlier, which is that this is all meant to lay the predicate for the president to take additional emergency actions. If you were to have taken him seriously, you would have expected that if tonight he announced there had been a foreign government plot to interfere in our elections, that he would have announced consequences for that foreign adversary for meddling in our elections. He spent a third of his speech talking about the Chinese Communist Party and a plot to interfere and overturn our elections, to steal your data. What we did not hear from the president tonight is a single act of consequence against the Chinese. He announced no sanctions, no actions, no diplomatic expulsions, nothing, because this was not actually about a foreign adversary meddling in our elections. This was about forming the predicate for actions to control our elections. Just remember that and watch in the days to come if there's a single thing done to punish China. There will not be. And that will be the White House's admission that this really wasn't about a foreign meddling plot. I want
and Miles, I would just that's a very important point, and I would highlight, as you well know, that in normal administrations where the president hasn't made 22,000 stock trades for up to $1.6 billion while touting the products of the companies that he buys and making billions on crypto, that what happens in these circumstances is, if this intelligence is really actionable, that the Chinese ambassador gets called on the carpet. He's brought to the White House. He gets chewed out, or he's brought to the White House or the State Department. He gets chewed out. you know, they're given the opportunity to basically, you know, explain themselves to the extent that they can. You know, the only times that you see raw intelligence are in real emergencies and, you know, crises. And probably the most dramatic one in the history of America, of course, was the Cuban Missile Crisis, where we went live with the you know, the bombing, the aerial photographs of the missile sites in Cuba. That's a circumstance where the consequences were spelled out dramatically, and the stakes were posed to the American people in a dispositive way. There's nothing dispositive about what he said tonight. It was just mush.
Okay.
Just mush. Oh, go ahead, Xander.
No, this particular lie, I think we all know he's full of shit. What he's trying to do, and I saw Herman Jacobs in our chat say it clearly, he's trying to create pretext. What does this particular lie give him cover to do? Is this more about being able to invoke emergency powers and laying the groundwork for that? What is this particular lie? Because it doesn't feel deeply connected to some of the Save Act stuff, right? It has very little to do with women changing their last name or whatnot. What does this give him cover for, in your opinion? What's the value of this lie to him?
Who are you asking? All of us?
Yeah, all of you. All of you.
I mean,
I
think we've already.
I can't hear Xander.
Oh, okay. So he's asking like what the.
He said Ty Xander was just saying. He said, "Don't like the mustache."
No, stop it.
I agree with him on some issues. No, Ty Xander was saying, what were the mischaracterizations, the lies tonight meant to lay the groundwork for? And I'd be interested to know, I know you've hinted at this a little bit earlier, Ty, but what do you think the measures are that Trump has not attempted to take on, knowing that a lot of the things he's going to try to do to influence the midterms will be deemed illegal, will be paused by the courts, but what did he maybe try to lay the groundwork for tonight?
Well, I think he tried to lay the groundwork for two things in particular. First off, of course, was the quote Save America Act with, you know, his Hail Mary to try to, you know, salvage the possibility that might pass. I don't think he succeeded, because I don't think he said anything that a sitting senator, you know, could see as actionable or even important based on what he said tonight. But more importantly, this is for MAGA. This is so when you know, the jackbooted thugs of ICE, you know, stop murdering people in Minneapolis and in Maine and in Memphis and in elsewhere in the country, you know, when they're focused on the elections and he sends them out to the polls, you know, that MAGA is not offended. You know, they think this is part of his emergency, you know, concern, real genuine concern about elections, which we know is not genuine. And we know it's his intent. He has to disrupt these elections if they are going to cling to power, because they're definitely going to lose the House in a free and fair election. They could lose the Senate in a free and fair election, and certainly should. So I think that what you're going to see, you're going to see that, and I think this is basically so that people, you know, won't switch sides, won't come out of their chairs, and will assume that he's doing, you know, something principled, when of course we know that that's not principled, and it's purely selfish, and it's purely designed for him, Stephen Miller, Mike Johnson, and others to try to cling to power.
You know, one thing that made it a little easier to laugh at this time around is his ability to have his lies ricochet around the MAGA sphere. I don't know what you call the broader MAGA universe, are really reduced compared to, like, you know, the last 10 years. You think about the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons and the Megyn Kellys and the Marjorie Taylor Greens that would have previously taken this and then ran with it. I don't know if he has the amplification to this audience that he once had.
Yeah, it goes to the point we were talking about earlier, Xander. Like, sorry, Ty can't hear you. I need to remind him.
Go ahead.
He said that he doesn't have the same audience that he once had, Ty, because of the Tucker
his
Carlson
beefs
and the Candace Owens and all these people who kind of just left him, Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I think it really does go to that point. Like, are they gaining any new members of MAGA at this point? Like, I don't think they are, but I do agree with Ty that this is really just setting the ground, the stage for what we are going to see them try to do in November. I mean, we've been seeing it every single day. Even yesterday with Todd Blanche, Senator Amy Klobuchar questioned him, can you commit to me that you will follow the law and that there will be no troops at the polls? And he said, yes, I'll follow the law. And he didn't include the second part, and she pressed him on it. But the other thing that, I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but again, like, you do a primetime address, you have all these eyes on you, everyone's talking about it. I pulled up Fox to see what they have on their website right now. They talked about this really big address. He's keeping it under wraps because he's going to reveal something massive, and it was nothing. So my thought goes to, okay, what are they doing? Actually, they don't want us reporting on and talking about what else is happening that we're not aware of, maybe today or tomorrow.
Well, I think on the Fox point, I'm sure that Fox is, weighing, what the prudent thing to do is, because the last time they parroted Trump's election fraud claims, it cost them $750 million. And a penalty that they had to settle,
and their most famous anchor
litigation on. So I think they are in between a rock and a hard place. I'm sure that they would prefer to be out there. Certainly, the Jesse Waterses of the world would prefer to be out there cheerleading, for this. But I don't know if you're a cheerleader on this. What point do you grab onto that's not going to be eviscerated tomorrow by a real fact checker?
Well, you're hoping that people don't.
And we're fact checking them right now. Before I shift, Ty, and we'll wrap it a little bit here, but before I shift to what we can do about it, I'm going through some of these documents here. This dump is even more devastating for Donald Trump than I realized. This is a very significant self-own. File for file, there are things in here that are saying the opposite of what he said tonight. One of the documents declassified, one of the supposedly bombshell documents, states that the National Intelligence Officer for Cyber and the Director for Election Threat Analysis, who they're resting a lot of these claims on about Chinese intervention, assesses that Beijing has taken, quote, at least some low-level exploratory steps to undermine the president's chances by denigrating him and shaping voter suppression, unquote. In the same report that talks about the more extensive measures undertaken by Russia, their most damning indictment I've seen so far in these pages is a single person in the intelligence community stating that the Chinese have taken some low-level exploratory steps. This is so far from the text of the speech that Donald Trump delivered. This is really, really bad. I mean, whoever wrote this speech, this is awful stuff.
But this is what happens when you have an ODNI who has zero intelligence experience, who's only there because he was successful in persuading Trump, to bring mortgage charges against some of his enemies, which blew up in his face. Now he's in charge of our entire intelligence apparatus. Notwithstanding the statutory requirement that he have some intelligence experience, he has none. And, I don't think he wrote the speech because there were a couple of complete sentences, but I'm sure he picked out these documents.
Yeah. Ty, I want to ask you a final question before we let you go and we bring our friend Waj Ali back in, which is, talk to me about, you've been incredibly eloquent on this front, on all of the networks out there in public, about what we can do to protect our elections and what we can do to prevent the man that you and I both worked for from undermining the integrity of the 2026 elections and ultimately curbing these abuses of power. Talk to us about how we fight back and how folks should be thinking about that in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
So I wish I had a silver bullet. This is what I always say. I only really know the traditional route. I'm a child of the 60s. I spent 3 of my college spring semesters protesting in D.C. over Vietnam, Kent State, and Thailand and Cambodia, and ate some tear gas, saw some friends get beaten up and bloodied. Sadly, we witnessed people die at Kent State when the National Guard gunned them down. Only by assembling and speaking out and not allowing our neighbors, friends, and relatives to be lazy, in terms of not doing anything, and lazy in terms of the way they think. You've got to call out these atrocities. You have to share. You can't do it just out of anger or partisanship. You need the facts. I mean, when somebody says something that is factually, debunkable, share the facts with them. I mean, reach out. We're not going to make converts by telling people how stupid they are. We're only going to make converts by trying to share information with the hope that people will find the self-respect to acknowledge the facts and do the right thing. But I also think, the other traditional method is call your congressperson, call your neighbor's congressperson, call your senators, talk to your mayor, talk to the people that are coming up, talk to the governors who, while they're relied upon by Trump to be, lapdogs, see if they can get a backbone. I mean, there are a couple of Republican governors out there, who have found their spines. And are pushing back on some of this stuff. So I think really, be an American, love the country, love your neighbor, but educate people when you can, and be educated when you can. If you're wrong, listen. I mean, because only if we start listening to each other and communicating and reuniting is this country going to be saved.
Yay. Can you hear that?
No.
No, that was the
crowd.
Effect, Ty.
The crowd went wild.
The crowd went wild. Ty Cobb, former White House lawyer, outspoken patriot. Sir, thank you for everything you continue to do. Thank you for joining us tonight. There will be many more important nights to come, and we look forward to your incisive analysis. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anytime I can get on with Tess, I'm there, man. Trust me.
Take care, my brother. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Waj, we brought you back in because I had to get the censor button set up first. And we wanted.
Wait, why are we censoring? No,
we don't really. We don't do censorship here, but Waj knows some words that I think would scorch the ears of most people. I want to just let him off. Waj, what's your analysis of all of this?
I was saying beforehand, I wished and I hoped that this would be the announcement that MAGA would transform itself into Make America Gay Again, because clearly we know that this is the gayest political movement in history. And I'm not using gay as pejorative. I'm using gay as a little description, as in they are sexually attracted to men. And we see Pete Hegseth really seems to hate women, but he really loves well-groomed, muscular men with high testosterone, and they love YMCA. And Donald Trump sits there and talks about handsome men, good-looking men. And we know from the fact from Grindr, which is an app that gay men use, that Grindr shuts down each time these Republican men gather, either in Wisconsin or in Phoenix, Arizona. But I digress. That didn't happen. What happened was what you and I and Maritza and Xander all predicted, which was he is setting the stage to try to declare a national emergency. He is setting the stage with lies in order to take over the elections, perhaps implement martial law, call for the Insurrection Act. This was a sign of a terribly weak, old, dying, frail man. And it is very scary, folks, but I want really people to focus on that. The only reason he had to do this today, he knows he's not going to win in 2026. He realizes Republicans will probably lose the House. He realizes they might lose the Senate. He realizes his base is turning on him, on the economy, on the failed war in Iran, on the Epstein files, on AI data centers. He realizes that even white men are now leaving him. He's historically low with independents, low with Latinos, right? He's not winning over anyone. And furthermore, he knows that it's all going to get worse. So this was a tired, scared, frail old man showing you all, like, this is like when someone shows you their final magic trick, they got nothing left, right? They got nothing left. So he's literally saying, economy ain't going to get better. War in Iran, I effed up. I'll never admit it. Epstein files, you'll never see it because I most likely, allegedly, did terrible things with Jeffrey Epstein. AI data centers, I'm bought out by AI and crypto. So yeah, you're going to get more data centers. The CDC, everything's going to get worse. Parasites and bacteria that cause explosive diarrhea, that's just the first plague of 10 plagues that is about to come down the pipeline. Billionaire beautiful bill, oh shit. Wait until they realize that takes $1 trillion cut out of Medicaid. Everything's going to get worse. I can't turn the ship around. I'm too old. I'm too demented. I'm too fragile. I'm too cankled. So what am I going to do? This is it. I'm going out with my 17-page plan that I concocted with my other freaks in February to try to declare a national emergency and take over the elections. But I don't know if you've seen, Miles, because you all have been live. These people are so incompetent that they released some of the documents. I don't know if you've seen this. The documents that the Trump administration has released reveal that China did meddle and tried to undermine Biden. And some of the other documents that they revealed show that it was actually Russia meddling. So they can't even election interfere and rig competently. It is still terrifying. It's everything that we thought of. We predicted what would happen. I think if I was a drinker, every time I took a shot over the things that we thought he would say, remember I said Barack Hussein Obama, he stressed the Hussein. We would have won. I would have been dead of alcohol poisoning. But the fact that he targeted these 18 states, Miles, I think we need, what we said earlier today when you're on the left hook, full court press. We need everyone to file lawsuits. We need all the states to work in concert like the Avengers. And I think we overwhelm them, Miles. I think they're too incompetent, too afraid, too reckless, and we have the numbers. So it is scary, but I think this was the death rattle of a man who knows he's desperate. Sorry for my rant. That's my take.
I want to know though. I haven't talked about this. Maybe you all have. Why does he keep saying transgender for all? What is he like? What is he trying to say with that? Who's biting onto this for him to say, yes, we should keep saying that over and over and over?
Well, weirdly on the data centers, I saw that a lot of folks believe he was in his briefing. He misheard transistors when they were talking about data centers, and he heard transgender. That's why you had these sort of inexplicable quotes from him this week where he said, they gave out the money for the CHIPS Act, but they would only give it if there was transgenders in them. People are like, no, it's transistors. They're talking about transistors. But to Waj's point, it's funny. We laugh, but this guy's real broken. He's the president of the United States, and he is very broken. And I do want to say, I want us to talk a little bit as a group here and get each of your thoughts on the ways we fight back. Because here's what frustrates me. I think people get too far down the doom rabbit hole when it comes to this. We should be very worried about the future of our democracy. We should be fighting back very hard against this administration. But I think, Waj, you just made the point. This address tonight was not a sign of strength. This was a remarkable admission of weakness. The president couldn't even buttress the points that he made in the speech. The documents don't support it. There's a million things. We fact-checked this thing already to death. This was a broken speech. But he's relitigating an old election, hoping desperately it might give him justification to do something in this one. But more importantly, they're getting their butts kicked on everything they're trying to do to meddle in this election. Let me just give you a couple examples. Mail-in ballot executive order that Trump tried to put out, right? That's been paused by the judges. Young people that they've tried to dissuade from getting to the polls are organizing in record numbers. The emergency powers that Trump has tried to invoke have been exposed before he's invoked many of them. The ways he has fantasized about intimidating voters at the polls with ICE agents and the FBI preemptively. Prosecutors around the country have been organizing to stop that from happening at the polls. And in the states where he wants to throw additional barriers in front of people when it comes to register to vote, the get out the vote efforts are already preparing as if some of those document requirements are going to be put in place by the SAVE Act to make sure it doesn't matter. And I want to tell you this, each of those efforts to fight back that I just mentioned are just things that Defiance.org has supported. Right? Those are just the things, the tiny sliver of things just we as an organization have done and support it. Okay. We're a tiny nonprofit that's existed for less than a year. And if all of those things, mail-in ballot executive order, young people organizing, emergency powers, prosecutors, get out the vote, if those are things that just we are doing, tiny nonprofit out there, punch it above our weight, then the mass of efforts to counter Trump's election interference is much more substantial than you realize. There has been, yes, they've had years to prepare for this. They've had years to prepare. And you know what? I'm not impressed. I'm really, really unimpressed. If this is what they've got after years of preparing to steal the 2026 midterms, it's the crackpot cabinet back in office. They've really done a terrible job in preparing to cosplay as dictators. They just look like they were what they were in 2020, which is losers. I want to ask you, Waj, and then maybe go to you, Xander, and then Maritza. The efforts to push back, it has been quite sweeping. We have seen the pro-democracy movement mobilize significantly. It's terrible that they have to be in federal courts fighting a would-be dictator, but they are, and they're winning again and again and again.
You know, I will say this. I don't know. You know, we talked about this earlier today, Miles, when you're on, and I don't know if Maritza and Xander agree with me. I will just, I'm not a cynic. I'm not apathetic. I'm a realist. I try to be an optimist, but I'm a realist. Yeah. I know my country, and my country is a masochistic country, and my country learns the hard way, and my country is very stubborn, and my country is still, if you will, our soma is that myth of American exceptionalism. And sadly, we always have to suffer before people wake up, and all of it's preventable. And I think we still need, and I hope I'm wrong, still need 4 or 5 months more of suffering. And that's sadly, folks, that suffering is coming and because of these failed policies. But I do think, Miles, what we're witnessing, and if you look at the AI data centers, just one data point.
Yeah.
People have become radicalized in 4 months. In 4 months. You're seeing people, and by radicalized, I'm using it as like waking up, being conscientious, right? And I think people, once they see that, once they see this heat dome, once they see this parasitic bacteria, once they see the cuts to Medicaid, once, you know, you're seeing people not afford college, income inequality, rich are getting richer. Like every day there's a new crack. And I think that crack widens, Miles. And I think more and more people are on the fence, more and more people are apathetic for 10 years. You're seeing them wake up. Like I think that the shift is happening faster. Sadly, I hope I'm wrong. I think it will take a few more months, but I do see all these different, if you will, multicultural alliances happening where people are like, all right, you and I probably didn't see eye to eye, but we got to take out this mother effer figuratively and peacefully, right? And so I think lawyers are doing their job. Judges are doing their job. We need Democrats, any Democrat in these 18 states who can flex. Every single aspect of resistance, Miles, which we talked about earlier. How do you take on a fascist machine? Everyone thinks there's going to be a haymaker. We've been waiting for that haymaker for 10 years. No, it's a scalpel approach. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We have the numbers. They're incompetent. They're slowing down. They don't have the numbers. They're reckless. And now we have to just overwhelm them. A lawsuit here, a lawsuit there, a protest here. ABC and CNN and NBC for the first time saying, nah, we're not going to air your stream of bullshit. These add up. Special elections being lost here, a judge slapping them down over there. It becomes so overwhelming that I believe what we're witnessing now is the fascist machine collapse upon itself. And the last thing I'll say, and because I go into this, I'm a masochist and go in these MAGA spaces. MAGA is eating itself right now, Miles and Maritza and Xander. And these are the issues if you guys want to poke. And I say poke, use them against each other, provoke the cannibalism. Epstein files, he can't escape it. Illegal war in Iran, he promised America first, can't escape it. He promised to help the economy, he effed up, can't escape it. AI data centers, can't escape it. Those are 4 issues, I think in particular, where you, and then, the murder of Charlie Kirk. Thank you, conspiracy theories, Candace Owens. They're eating each other alive, and I think our job is to have them eat each other and weaken each other and cannibalize each other as the rest of us form our multicultural alliance. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
That talk would get millions of views. Xander, you know, what's your take on that front? You pessimistic, you optimist, are you a Waj hyper realist?
I think our buddy Ty skipped too many amendments when he said, well, really, we don't have that many ways to interfere with a madman that's in the Oval Office. He talked about the 25th Amendment and how it's unlikely to be invoked. We do have the First Amendment. We have the Second Amendment. We have the rest of the Bill of Rights that guarantees a fair and just process. We've done this. 2025 is when we looked to the elites and we said, will you please save us? Hopefully you'll save us. Maybe this guy will save us. Maybe we'll get the votes we need. We will save us. I think sometimes when we ask this question of, well, what's the last thing we can do? There's almost this question we're asking, which is like, when do we lose? Do we lose if this doesn't happen? We never fucking lose. We're never going to lose. What you're doing right here is what we need to do to win. We keep gathering, we keep talking about what's going on, and we keep mobilizing and investing in the best strategies to win each fight. We're never going to lose. It might get trickier. It might get muckier as we move forward, but we're never going to lose. You need to do this exact thing. Organize, come together, talk about what's going on, mobilize your communities. Everyone that's coming to this, you are in the 1% of plugged in people. Your job is not only as a listener, but an organizer. And that's why we started this whole thing, because this is a dynamic moment.
Point, though.
Yeah.
We will lose if we don't do anything. Apathy is the fast path. Apathy is the super highway to losing our republic. But I think, Xander, you're speaking to people who are animated. You stay animated. Yes. You grow the pro-democracy movement. You and Waj have both said something very inspiring to me, which is that I don't like their odds. I don't like these guys' odds because they're on the other side of the U.S. Constitution. I mean, if you were coming into this fight cold,
yes,
and you were told, all right, here's these guys over here, thousands of federal judges, thousands of decisions that they violated the Constitution, and their movement is shrinking and it's cannibalizing itself. As Waj notes, you can join that side or you can join this side, which includes Democrats, independents, and disaffected Republicans who are united because they don't like watching the Constitution torched. And oh, by the way, their ranks are growing by the millions. Which fight you going to join? All right. I like our odds, baby. I like our odds. But if we stay organized, if we keep going, and I said this to Waj earlier today, love that Winston Churchill quote that Winston famously said that Americans always do the right thing after they've tried everything else. Yeah. We fuck up sometimes, folks. It's true. But that's okay. Failure's the fastest way to learn. And I think, Waj, you were making that point. We may need a couple more months of getting it wrong in some places or saying affordability over and over when we should just be saying prices are too damn high at the stores. We'll get there. We'll get there and we will rally. And we got the tools at our disposal. And again, you look at who's out there on that playing field. Whew, I saw what Donald Trump did tonight. I like our odds.
Yeah, just a point, just to wrap where I was heading there, because I'm saying this audience right here is in the 1%. Your job, you're ahead of, you are projecting the risk. You know ahead of time what's the risk. If you tried to mobilize Minnesota in the ways they did before Renee Good and Alex Preddy, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. But what you're able to do now, as the people listening here and the people like just keep gathering at Defiance, is you start to organize your communities. You grab organizing groups. When you participate in No Kings, when you participate in May Day, it's a practice run. We are practicing mobilizing together so we can withdraw consent and being governed by a lawless tyrant. And so this is a great time to organize. It's a great time to keep coming together. Make sure you're a part of this right here. Make sure you're a part of your local organizing groups. And we will be resilient in the face of this. And wear your organizing cap. You're not a passive listener. If you're listening to us, you're ahead of the game. I was just with all my high school buddies. They have no idea what's going on. It's on us to be really, really great organizers in this moment and stay informed. So you're all doing it. And as long as we keep doing it and we identify as organizers and keep having the hard conversations and keep listening to our community and keep informing everyone, we'll come out of this. There's not going to be a point where we lose in that sense, Miles. In that sense, as it gets worse.
Shout out to Xander's high school buddies. Whatever you guys are doing to avoid all of this, incredible. You must be having the best time right now.
They're so happy.
They're just doing their thing. They're just doing their thing.
Ignorance really is bliss, isn't it? Also the super highway to losing your republic. Maritza, surprise us. I would have expected you to take the pro-democracy take, but maybe you're going to have the pro-dictator take tonight.
Yeah, well, my dog Dolly. Yeah, surprise. Hot take, guys. I love dictators. No, my dog Dolly poked her head in my office door for this segment. So
I saw that. We
everybody
could
say hi to
we
Dolly.
could swiffer up the entirety of the algae reflecting pool with that little softball.
She's very sassy. So this is Dolly P, and sometimes she shows up. So here's what I'm going to say. All these things are great, and I agree with everything that's been said so far. And I know people say, give us something tangible to do. So here is my tangible thing that you can go do. First of all, if you're worried about your elections and you're worried about the integrity and you're worried about, bad actors or I'll put Dolly down, whatever it may be, call your local election office. Ask them if you can come down and volunteer. Ask them where they need help. Ask them how you can get involved so that you can be part of that process. They need monitors. They need all kinds of help down at your elections office. So that's the start. But my next thing, and this is kind of in tandem with what Xander said. I was with someone the other day too, Xander, who said, "Oh, well, my friends and I, we really just don't talk politics. It just doesn't come up." And for me, and probably for everybody on the screen, it's like, wait, what? How do you do that? Because we live this so much, and we sleep, eat, and breathe it. But it is very important to remember that that's normal. Like, that's the norm right now. A lot of people are exhausted. They have news fatigue. They have bad news fatigue. They don't want to tune in. And so a lot of people are checking out because, as I hear so many of my friends say, I just can't right now. I just can't. I just can't. And I get that. And that's a very privileged position to be like, well, I just can't right now. But here's the deal. You have to. And so my challenge to everybody is we have 110 days until the election. Start your text messaging, start your calling. Your friends who say, I just can't, or they're really not checked in, or they don't know what's going on, or they haven't heard about this latest push. You got to call them and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this because it's really important. And what can I do to help you make sure you get to the polls in November? What do you need? Do you need childcare? You need a ride? How can I make sure that you're registered? My favorite, I've said this before, I think on the show, I offer to make people pies. If they promise me they'll vote. So, get creative.
Elon gives them $1 million. Why should I be on your team? Is that a $1 million pie?
Sure.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Elon, by the way, getting criminal referrals for having done that, by the way. He broke the law.
It's made with love. It's made with love, Miles.
With love. And everything is worth what you'll pay for it, Miles. So if you'll pay $1 million for it.
There you go.
But I just think we have to get creative and you have to, I know it's uncomfortable. And some of these conversations are really, you don't want to broach it, but now's the time, folks. And you have to have those uncomfortable conversations and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this. This is really important. And here's why. And open it up to have people ask you questions. Because that's another thing I hear a lot is people have questions or they don't quite understand anything, but they don't want to sound dumb. And they don't want to be judged for not knowing what's going on. So you have to open, I say that to all of my friends, especially their teenagers. I say, hey, if you ever have a question about what's going on, call me. I'm happy to talk to you about this. No dumb questions. All right, there you go.
Well, those are all fantastic. And that makes me think about one of the groups that we supported recently is we made a grant to Leaving MAGA, Rich Logis's organization. But to the bigger question, you said it, Maritza, people everywhere are hearing things like the craziness from Donald Trump tonight. They're hearing that their elections might be stolen, and they're saying, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. If you stumbled into this live stream and you don't know who we are, literally, we quit our other professional lives to launch a nonprofit to just answer that question so that you wouldn't have that excuse. What can I do? And no one's telling me. We are a courage concierge for you. We can't take the action for you. We can bring the actions to you every single week and give you the option if you want to take them. Actions curated to counter Trump's corruption, but then you got to make that final choice. That choice whether to pick them off of that tray that we're bringing. If you want to sign up for free to know what we're doing to counter Trump's corruption and what you can do, tangible, real things. We're not interested in the BS, just look up at the sky and hope that Donald Trump goes away. No, real things that you can do to restore the rule of law in this country and counter corruption, then go to defiance.org. Just go there. You can sign up. You can get those updates. You don't like them, say unsubscribe. I don't want to save our democracy. I want to bury my head in the sand again. But if you feel very inspired, which we suspect you will, because this organization has exploded in less than a year, you can also become a member. You become a member and you fund these actions and you shape what actions we take. And it's not just random. It's every single Wednesday. We announce a new thing we are doing to counter Donald Trump's corruption. This week, we announced a sweeping voter registration campaign across the state of Texas to make sure that no matter what happens, that people in Texas can exercise their right to vote, even though Donald Trump wants to make it harder, even though Ken Paxton wants to make it harder. The week before that, we announced other efforts to make sure that our Latino friends out there are not scared away from the polls, which this administration wants them to be. We've announced efforts to support prosecutors to make sure that if federal agents show up at those polls, as Waj warned about earlier, and if they try to intimidate you, that you've got local prosecutors who are ready to arrest those agents, and as one of them said, throw their asses in jail if they break federal law. We're doing a vast array of things, and every time we announce one of those actions or groups we are supporting, we give you additional things that you can do to make sure that those actions are carried out, to provide supporting cover fire, to crowdsource courage across this country. So go check it out, folks. Easy thing that you can do is sign up at defiance.org, and we'll tell you every week new things that make an actual difference, that really, really do help, that will help protect our country. There, I'll get off my soapbox. We got to wrap up here, folks. Waj, I want to throw it back to you. One thing, it doesn't even have to be about this. One thing that's got you feeling optimistic right now. Doesn't have to be about the election. I know you're hyper realist. One thing in general that's got you feeling optimistic.
Zohran Mamdani, and specifically the way he ran, the message that he ran on, and the fact that once he won, he has flexed his power and shown people this is what you can do when you win. And regardless of whether you like everything about him or not, he won without throwing any marginalized community under the bus. And it's, I think it's very inspiring for people to see Zohran Mamdani, a young man, a Muslim man, a brown man, a son of immigrants, who is in power 6 months in, does it with a smile on his face, flexes, and is helping people. And I think that gives people hope. Oh, we can win. And once we win, we can flex and we could get good shit done that actually helps everyone.
You know what I love about that is I disagree with almost everything Zohran Mamdani does from a policy standpoint. I'll be real. I'm like this very conservative libertarian. We just don't go there on our program because the threat is to our democracy. And I agree with you. He is so refreshing because he's so damn decent in a time where we have lost decency. You feel about him the way you felt about Obama, that our poison politics can actually be overcome by someone acting decent and kind to people. It is a remarkable example he is setting in the city of New York. And I don't care if Tea Party types or super socialist types mimic it. Please mimic Mamdani. Xander, what's making you feel optimistic?
We touched on it a little bit. I just feel like Trump's lost his ability to insert his lies into an echo chamber that previously would validate it in a million different ways and make it feel like a truth to a large subset of the population. I mentioned some of the names earlier, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, these folks that were kind of mini Trumps in their own rights, and they had ecosystems that, trusted them. That was all necessary to propagate lie after lie after lie. And now that he is beefing with most of those influencers, it just feels like when you hear, I would have had a lot more anxiety a year ago if he gave that speech than I did today, because I just don't feel like that echo chamber of hyper influential people are there for him and his BS anymore.
They're bailing. All right, Maritza, final word. What's got you feeling optimistic? Is it that little fluffy white thing that you picked up off the ground? What is it? Is it John Tester? Where's John Tester? He was supposed to be with us tonight.
Guys, I tried to FaceTime John Tester multiple times to get him on here. He's getting all weird as we near August.
Let's just leave it there. Don't even tell people why.
Well,
You heard it here, folks. Senator Jon Tester's getting a little weird.
If you talk to anybody who worked for him or works with him, you know the A months are critical on the farm, April and August. We're heading into harvest, so he's just very, very busy. He's been waking up at 4 a.m. So I tried to FaceTime him to get him on here. I'm guessing he's fixing something or sleeping. But
tell him we'll be on until 4.
Yeah, but he and I will. I think we are going to go live tomorrow and talk about some of this stuff. So join us on Grounded. And Coffee's Life asking about Katie Fang. We had Katie Fang on Grounded a few days ago. It was a great conversation. Here's what's making me feel optimistic, aside from my dog. I've been doing a lot of digging into the election stuff, and I just had this chat with David Becker on our show, and he always leaves us with so much hope about the stability and the safety of our elections, and that no matter what they're going to try, they're ready for this. They are ready for this across the country, and it's because we don't have nationalized elections, we don't have federalized elections, that makes this so much harder. So go listen to our episode with David Becker, because people can, like, every time he's on our show, people write, "Thank you, I needed that. I feel so much better. I feel relief." And then I will say, I'm kind of an animal weirdo. Like, some people call me Snow White, but I have this injured bird, and I've kept it alive for 3 days until the rehab lady can get to it on Sunday. So that's also giving me hope, because I am keeping this little, I think it's a northern flicker. It's like a woodpecker alive. And man, like, that's great.
I didn't expect that one. Good answers all around.
Nice way of flexing there, Maritza. Now I have to find a pet to save. What the hell? I have 3 cats. I got 2 cats from the shelter. They're happy.
See, that's all you need. Yeah, Dolly's from Korea. She's a rescue from Korea. Like, that's good. Those are all good things.
Well, let me foot stomp one thing that you said before we go, which is David Becker's point about our elections in this country. If you are ever worried about a strong man taking over, flipping your ballots, determining the outcome, just remember that the entire Russian federal government tried to throw all of its weight into our election in 2016. And yes, they influenced public opinion to give Donald Trump the White House. But when it came to flipping ballots, these guys were infuriated. We declassified much of the information after 2016. And big credit to my friend John Brennan, who was CIA director and wrote a spectacular intelligence community assessment about that sweeping Russian effort to get into our elections. But if you go read those files, and if you were read into the classified files like me, you came away with an impression of a very frustrated workforce, because these guys didn't know how goddamn resilient we are in the United States of America. These guys did not know how hard it is to break into our ballot boxes and change our elections. These guys did not know how much we care about our right to vote. And they were unsuccessful in changing those votes. Donald Trump will be unsuccessful in reaching his hands into our ballot boxes, into our mail, and trying to change this election. But if you have any doubt, you have control over it. You will be the ones to decide if this election is too big to rig, or if we're apathetic and we give up our democracy. Like I said earlier, having seen what I've seen the past few months in this country, I like our odds. Thank you. A big thank you to Waj for spending the time with us tonight. You were spectacular. My wife was even texting me and saying she was cracking up. And I said, stop, the baby's sleeping. Thank you, Waj, as always. And of course, for your incisive analysis too, in addition to your jokes. Xander and Maritza, I will see you again this week. At least I'll see Xander again this week. And as Maritza noted, if you are not following the Grounded podcast on Substack, you really should be listening to, watching Grounded. She and Senator Jon Tester are fantastic. They have amazing guests. They have great conversations. Please like, share, and subscribe to them across social media. Thank you, friends. This was a special edition of Defiance Daily. We're going to continue to defy. We will be back on the air tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. And a big thanks to our producer, Mercedes, who is an absolute rock star. Thank you, Mercedes.
Thanks, Mercedes. Everyone.